I would say that actually, I think a lot of people in this room, instead of making these like really philosophical concepts here, for more rubber meets the road, there is some homework that everybody can probably do that's going to make us all, we found this to be really positive for us in the last couple of years. One is, if you have an intern or anybody who can help you out, have them listing out every ad in every other publication in the market. And if you don't, you should be doing it yourself anyway. I mean, you should be looking through everybody else's print, online, whatever, and writing down who's spending what, and start with that list. I mean, there's a lot of busy work we can all do. We can write out verticals. We can go vertical by vertical and say, who are the dentists we think we would like to work with? Who are the lawyers that we'd like to work with? Who are the auto dealerships we'd like to work with? Are there any hotels that we think would be good to work with? What are the Chamber of Commerce or the other business associations in the area that we'd really like to hit? And then every week you can roll over to a new vertical and just focus on that vertical. Okay, this week I just want to talk to business associations. And by doing that, you get a deeper understanding that particular week or month or whenever you're focusing on that vertical of the specific needs of that industry in your local area. And they're different, right? The business model for pizza delivery is very different than the business model for dental work. So keep that in mind and try to learn from those businesses as you succeed and fail in actually penetrating these different verticals. And the final thing is set aspirational goals of the big advertiser that would make you proud one day to have on your site that you don't think that you can get. And for us, I remember early on, I said, I really want the Sacramento Zoo. I love the zoo. We're way too small for them, but I really want to work with them. And you just doggedly pursue that one that you really, really want. And you tell them unabashedly that you've been wanting them to advertise for months. And just don't be afraid to say, I'm a huge fan of you. Your ad on my site makes my site better. I want to actually have a real partnership with you. Those are the types of conversations that not only result in, bringing in on that advertiser that you didn't think you could get, or selling services or whatever else you might be doing for that advertiser, but now you really think of it as a partnership. And when you think of it as a partnership, and these people aren't your clients, they're your partners, that tends to be a longer lasting relationship, which impacts your bottom line. The more longer lasting relationships you have, the less churn you'll have. The less churn you have, the less work to just maintain. And that means you can try new things, which is kind of where I started the whole stuff. So,
to pick up a lot on kind of echo what Ben was saying, when I took over the Batavian, I started out with this concept of high opportunity targets, HOTS. Those are your hot sales leads, which is a kind of an advertising term, ad sales term. So I got all the other media in town, every place that local advertisers, the people I wanted to go after were advertising, made a spreadsheet, all the businesses, check boxes where they were advertising. Then I basically sorted that by top line are who's advertising in all the outlets, who's advertising in only a couple, who's only advertising in one. And I started out with those ones that are advertising everywhere, because they're the ones that understand most the value of keeping their name out there. And they're going to be in most cases, they're going to be the most amenable to trying something new. And that's who I went after first. And the other thing I looked at, kind of echoing Ben, one of the rules of brand building is to improve the image of your brand, is associate with other good brands. So there was a jewelry store in town that had advertised in all the media. The owners were highly involved with the community. I knew everybody respected them. So it became my goal early on to sign them as an advertiser. They would have to pay for the ad, but I greatly discounted off the rate sheet just to get them, because I knew if their ad appeared on my site, other business owners would notice and take us more seriously.
Right, it's that referred credibility of, that their credibility accrues to you and helps you open other doors. Vicki had a question.
The discussion we've had so far is basically your needs. You guys have seen that we didn't do. What have you done to figure out, and continuing the conversation, what strategies for figuring out what the folks you're going after need? Because, I mean, it really, you know, all basic models come down to satisfying a need. How do you figure out the pitch? And again, it may be a pitch, but how do you figure out what they need? What's your audience need? What's your customer need?
I would say it's a lot of conversation. I mean,
Yeah, let me repeat the question because we're driving Jeffrey nuts back here without the mics. The question was, how do you figure out? We've talked a lot about, you know, art from kind of a site-specific looking out at the world. How do you figure out and evaluate what both your potential advertising customers need, but also what your audience needs? So evaluating the needs.
I would say it's a lot of conversation. You know, you can make some guesses. You can look at their business and see how they're going, but you know, put yourself in the other position. Would you like somebody to come to you and say, "This is your problem. You need to do this"? You would immediately deck that person because I mean, you know what your problem is, and you don't want anyone to tell you. So it's a lot of conversation and getting people to tell you. And you know, I've got an advertiser now who, through 4 visits, finally he said, you know, my problem is that I really don't know who's coming into my store anymore. It's changed so much. And what I'd really like is to be able to get away to track who all the people are that are interested in us. So we help them start an email list. And that's turned into a whole bunch of different things. You know, now they're looking for us to manage their email lists, which is kind of cool. You know, those things all come through trust and partnership, and those people are the ones that will be your advertisers for life. I mean, this guy is awesome. I love hanging out with him.
Well, and that speaks to, I think, one of the things that, building off of what Mike just said and what Ben said, the idea that it's not just an exchange of money for an ad, that it's a relationship, and that you have to be looking at kind of where the relationship chain builds. I provided this service for you with advertising. What else can I do for your business? How else can I help you? And that leads to managing their email list or doing their social media or, you know, other opportunities that aren't strictly advertising but are part of the relationship and that have a financial value.
And there's also an intelligence that you can provide to advertisers. This guy is struggling to put on a bunch of solar panels on his store, and he's been fighting with permitting and construction, and so, you know, I say, oh, well, let me tell you about all these other people that are having problems with permitting, and he loves to hear that because he's like, all of a sudden, he's not a loser. You know, he's now like everybody else. And so now he looks forward to me coming by.
Well, one of the great things about visiting your advertisers regularly is they just love, I mean, you're the news source, and if you come in and tell them something that they haven't read on the site yet, they're getting like a real insight.
Yes.
So, you know,
yeah.
They look to you for information even when you're just walking in the store. And they love that. The picking up on this needs thing, identifying the customer needs, the email list. To me, that's something that comes out of, over time, building the relationship with the advertiser. Mm-hmm. And that's why I come back to this abundance thing. There's so many opportunities out there. You know, I've got at least a dozen advertisers that I could pitch doing websites for them and building websites for them. I just don't have the time to do it. So I don't even bother. I see the need. They tell me they have the need. Right now, I just can't fulfill the need. On the straight advertising side, though, retail display advertising is very simple. They need more customers in the door. You have a lot of readers. A good ad is going to help them get customers in the door. They see that value. Coinciding with that, part of the value proposition, though, for some of these advertisers, for some of these businesses you'll deal with, is they just love what you do and they want to support it. And they feel that they're doing something good for the community. And again, it comes back all into we're all in this together sort of thing.
David, you had a question?
Yeah, just an aside to what Mike was talking about. I wonder if you guys
Let me repeat the question. The question is figuring out pricing for services that are outside of advertising. So as Ben has been talking about, social media, email list management, other things that aren't an ad on your site, how do you figure out the pricing for that kind of work?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that, and I want to just start with a framework for everybody. Online advertising, in the grand scheme of things, has become about unreserved commodity exchanges, real-time bidding, platforms that allow people to buy and sell on trading desks, millions of impressions at once, like that. What we do is not a commodity. There's nobody in this room that does things that fits that model I just described. We don't do things like content farms, and we don't do things like spammers. We are embedded in our community, and we bring value. And with that value, we need to bring every service that we have. We need to bring every ounce of strength that we can to help the business partners we work with. How do you price that? Well, some things you're not going to be able to do necessarily in-house. I'm not going to take time to build someone's WordPress site, but I know some people who would build a hell of a WordPress site for an advertiser, and I know that they only charge X amount, and can I work out a deal where they charge a little less and I can take a 10% cut? So start thinking of yourself as any other service provider, making a percentage cut off of something like that. Now, if we're talking about a Facebook ad campaign where we're helping somebody buy Facebook ads and manage those ads and have a successful campaign, then we'll do something that's hourly, and we'll base it on the person who's executing the campaign's hourly wage plus a management fee for the fact that we had to go out and sell that ad, and I got to go make a report about that ad, go back and have another conversation with that person. So keep in mind, one of the biggest mistakes people make are they underprice these services because they forget all the management that goes on behind the scenes that isn't just about managing the specific transactions or building the site or something like that, but actually the management of your organization and making sure to be able to pay yourselves and make a profit on those transactions. So keep that in mind. I'll give you some concrete examples. For our social media work, we don't pay the people who execute the social media work a ton of money. Sometimes they come in as entry-level jobs, but there's actually a really great place to get to where our creative director makes more money, and there's an opportunity to keep making more money as long as they keep helping me grow the business. That allows us to price very competitively. As I said, we started out with an intern who got a part-time job doing this, and so $500 a month was something that we could charge for someone to really curate all of their channels, build all their assets in Facebook, Twitter. Maybe they needed some tips on Foursquare, maybe they needed some pictures on Flickr, maybe they needed YouTube videos that explained what they were doing. We could build all those things, and then we could create content calendars with them. And we found what kept people as long-term customers were weekly meetings with this person who used to be an intern and eventually became our social media expert. And then she became the creative director of Agency M. Now we charge $7.25 if you're an advertiser and $9.25 if you're not an advertiser for those same services. So we've kind of professionalized. We found that that's the price point that works for us. But I would say for most people, think about who's executing the work, how much you're going to have to pay them. Make sure you add in the management fees that you're talking about. And never forget that it's your job to have a relationship and work within the budgets of your advertisers or your partners. But you don't do commodity, and you don't do lowest price, and don't undervalue yourself, and don't forget when you're out there trying to figure out what you're pricing this, to pay yourself and be able to make a profit off of it.